Assalamu alaikum students. Today we are going to talk about the introduction to linguistics basic lecture about what is our subject matter or what is linguistics. Students, linguistics is generally defined as the scientific study of language. When we say that something is scientific, it is understood that it is the empirical study. It is going to deal with the findings or the results that are reliable and that are verifiable. So we can say that any scientific study deal with the findings or results that can be reliable and verifiable by scientific ways. And here the phenomenon being studied would be language. So we can say linguistics is the scientific or empirical study of language. Let's have a look how linguistics originated and when. The word linguistics was first used in the middle of the 19th century to separate or emphasize the difference between a newer approach to the study of language that was then developing and the more traditional approach of philology. Yes, philology was actually in the 19th century considered to be the subject that was dealing with the language and its different forms. And during the middle of the 19th century, the term was adapted or changed into linguistics. However, there was some difference between the domain or the areas in which the traditional philology was working and in which the modern subject linguistics was going to operate. That is, the philologist was concerned primarily with the historical development of language as it is manifest in written text and in the context of associated literature and culture. On the other hand, the linguist, though he may be interested in written text and in the development of languages through times, try to give priority to spoken language and to the problem of analyzing these languages as they operate at any given point in time. So, the philologist's sphere was rather restricted because he had been dealing with the written form of language and he had been dealing with the historical development that was taking place in the language. On the other hand, the linguist was dealing with the language or the version of language that was not only written but also available in the spoken form. And secondly, he was not only confined or restricted to the historical study of language, but he was interested in the language as it was being produced at any time. So we can say in more technical terms that he was interested in synchronic issues related to languages as well as to the diachronic issues, but the field of the philologist was confined to the diachronic linguistics only. Linguistics can be divided into two major spheres. First one is the microlinguistics. Microlinguistics, as the term indicates, takes into its sphere the micro or the smaller level of analysis of language. So microlinguistics domain includes phonetics, how speech sounds are produced, transmitted, and perceived, phonology, how sounds function in speech sound, morphology, how words are formed, semantics, how meanings are created, pragmatics, how we use language in everyday life. All of these can be considered to be the sub-disciplines of microlinguistics. The other area or broader sphere to which linguistics deal is the macrolinguistics. This domain is most of the time interdisciplinary because here linguistics also takes insight from some other discipline in order to maintain, modify, or influence its own theories or analysis. So, the domain of macrolinguistics incorporates into its boundaries sociolinguistics, study of the role of language in society, psycholinguistics, studies how language is processed in human mind, neurolinguistics, how Human neurological structure and processes affect the production of language. Computational linguistics, how the use of computer can be modeled according to human language processing. Mathematical linguistics discusses the mathematical properties of human language grammar. Historical linguistics deal with the history of language change. Philosophical linguistics deals with the state of reality and being as related to be reflection in language. Political linguistics that discusses language politics and different language policies and language change as a result of politics. Applied linguistics that deals with the use of language teaching, the use of linguistics in language teaching and language testing, and the analysis of style and speech therapy. So these are major areas, interdisciplinary areas, in which linguistics has been getting guidance or insight from the other disciplines in order to work in its domain. Students, there are certain misconceptions or misunderstandings about linguistics. Let's have a look what linguistics is not. In the initial portion, we have studied what linguistics is. Now we are going to study what linguistics is not, or what are the major misunderstandings about the linguistics. There is a misconception that linguistics is a pure science, but it is not so. Rather, linguistics is a social science because it has a place between natural and social sciences. As natural science, its studies our mouth and articulatory organs, and as a social science, its studies our interaction in society through speech sounds. It's just one single example from the field of phonetics, where the natural science has coordinated with the social science, and it and the resultant field is phonetics. Similarly, the whole domain of linguistics takes insight not only from the field of natural science but also from the social sciences. So we can say that linguistics is a social science. Unlike natural sciences, it doesn't work on the chemicals or the processes that are limited to sciences. Rather, it work on the human beings and their production language. And where human beings are involved, there would be no fixity about the phenomenon being studied, and some subject enters into the domain of social sciences. So we can say that linguistics is neither a natural science nor it is an arts, rather it is a social science. Another misconception about linguistics is that linguistics is the knowledge of many languages. A person who knows many languages is called linguist. It is the major misconception. It is not true. A linguist may only know one language or several languages or mastery of a particular language. What they try to study are the ways in which language is fulfilled to organize human needs as a system of communication. So, a linguist studies only general principles of language organization, language behavior, and refer to some actual use of language. But a person who knows many languages can be appropriately called polyglot. But we should keep in mind that a linguist need not to be necessarily a polyglot. Polyglot is the person who has his firm grip on the knowledge of different languages. But linguist need not to be necessarily a polyglot. He may have knowledge about the working of different languages, about the general rules or formulas according to which languages are formed, but he need not to have necessary to have firm grip on multiple languages. The third misconception that is associated with linguistics is that linguistics is the study of grammar. Yes, linguistics is only the study of grammar, but it is not true, because it doesn't only study grammar, as grammar is limited one and doesn't beyond the analysis of language at sentence level, particularly with regard to speech information. But in linguistics, minimal unit is phoneme and maximum unit is discourse. Yes, linguistics, if we say that linguistics is the study of grammar, then we are actually narrowing down the scope of the linguistic to just one component, and that is grammar. Yes, grammar is one of the areas or micro concept that is studied under the umbrella of linguistics, but linguistic does not merely deals with the grammar or the grammatical rules. Similarly, linguistics does not has nothing to do with the rules of the pronunciation. It just studies them as just one micro component in the name of phonetics or phonology, but it cannot be called or termed the whole domain of linguistics, because it is just one of the areas that linguistics studies. Similarly is the case with the grammar. Grammar is just one micro area that linguistics studies. So, on the other hand, the phenomenon of linguistics deal with the minimal unit of language, that is phoneme, and to the maximum unit that is called discourse. So, it is highly unjustified to uh, narrow down the scope of linguistics to just grammar or pronunciation or rules of pronunciation or rules of grammar. Yes, another relevant misconception that we may come across in linguistics is that findings of linguistics are applicable to all languages. It is a misconception. Languages vary in their origin, in their changing modes, and in their phonology, in their grammatical structures, in their semantic fields, and in their discourse level patterns. So, how can we say that linguistics is applicable to all the languages? Yes, definitely it provides insight about the general rules, about the common trends, about the languages. Anyhow, we can't say that it deals with all the languages, because viewpoints and theoretical models in this field even change from time to time and from language to language. So we get basic insight from linguistics about the analysis of languages or all the languages, but linguistic rules have flexibility enough to accommodate different languages within their domain by providing a unifying umbrella. Yes, the next misconception is that linguistics is only a historical study of language. What we have already talked about, philologist was actually concerned with the historical study or development of language. Linguistics is not so. Linguistics is thought to be only a historical study of language as it searches for the development of language. However, this notion is baseless, because historical study follows how languages originated and how it comes to this level. But on the other hand, linguistics is not just historical study, as it studies other aspects of language such as word formation, vocabulary building, morphology, syntax, and phonetics. And all of these aspects deal with the language as a synchronic or living form, living phenomenon that is existent in the current world rather than in the pages of history. Another misconception about linguistics is that linguistics is literary criticism. But it is not true, because the aim of literary criticism is to describe, interpret, and evaluate any piece of literature. It does all this references to particular literary norms in conformity with the certain school of thought. It is based on personal taste, it studies subjectively. On the other hand, linguistics is going to study language on scientific grounds, the whole production in the form of language, not just literary one. Yes, where does the difference lies? In literary criticism, just the production of literature or literary personalities would be studied. On the other hand, linguistics deal with the whole broader spectrum of life wherever it is produced. Either it is produced in daily routine environment, day to day communication, at marketplace, at court of law, at talk show, at home, in classroom, in the school, in the examination paper. All the demonstrations of language would be subject matter of linguistics, and it is not the case with literary criticism. And secondly, in the case of literary criticism, the judgments are most of the time subjective, but in the case of linguistic analysis, the judgments would be no more subjective, they are based on scientific grounds. Another misconception about linguistics is that it is rhetoric. Rhetoric is the conventional branch of language that focused on the art of oratory. Misconception is that linguistics is rhetoric, but both are two different things, because in linguistics, a person studies the scientific aspects of language, but a rhetorician tries to create a particular effect on the minds of the people. He uses words for special purposes. The object of rhetoric is to pursue the people to a specific point of view. For this purpose, the rhetorician makes a selective use of language which he thinks will fulfill this purpose. On the other hand, the domain of a linguist is far more broader. He would analyze the language in whatever form is it available in different social human activities. There is again a misconception that a linguist knows everything about language, but it is not so, because a linguist studies in a particular field or works in a particular field. For example, sociolinguistics can be one, psycholinguistics can be one, can be another, and there can still be a long list which has been discussed in the second slide. All the major subdisciplines that fall within the category of linguistics can be worked upon by a linguist. Okay, students, now come to the activity. Here I have given a link. There you may find some material about the misconceptions about the linguistics. You can paste the link in your Chrome and see the video about the content. And second, you have to prepare an assignment on the topic. And hopefully tomorrow or the day after tomorrow there would be session for question answers, and be prepared for that. Okay ji, it's over for today's lecture.